Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. I do hope you're having a great day. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 44. We have today on the podcast, very privileged and very happy to have her on, Katlyn Kotila. Yes, she is a very inspiring, motivating young lady, the type of person which makes you want to do harder on your sort of life goals and dreams. She is a student leader, public speaker. So please sit back, enjoy the show. Yes, if you have time, please subscribe. And yeah, tell a friend. Anyway, have a great day and yeah, enjoy the show. Peace. Yeah. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. This is the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 44. Ooh, today I have a young lady of the name of Katlyn Kotila. Yes, she's very impressed because I got the name right. Awesome. She is a student leader, a public speaker out there inspiring the world. And yeah, she is a vice president of a non-profit organization, to say the least. She has many more skills under her, how can I say, under her sleeve, but I won't be the person talking about it. Katlyn, please introduce yourself. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you so much for having me. So yeah, I'll introduce a little bit about myself.
Yeah.
My name is Katlyn, and I am currently a third-year university student here in Canada. I'm also the former vice president of a nonprofit organization. I just ended my term in May. I know I wish I was still, but unfortunately, all things must come to an end. And now I am just using my time to continue to advocate for those students who I was advocating for, as well as other causes that are important to me, and spending my time public speaking and sharing my story with others around the world.
Excellent, excellent. So, with your sort of journey starting, say, with the nonprofit organization, how did that all kick off? Because, like, if you're in your third year, that means you're fairly young to be like a vice president of a nonprofit, which, a multi-million-dollar nonprofit.
Yeah, so I'm actually 20 years old.
I remember.
Yeah. I know it always shocks people when I tell them. So I kind of fell into it, honestly. So the nonprofit is a student-based nonprofit, which kind of helps because I am a student.
Yes.
I fell into the organization about first year of university. I had just turned 18 years old, and they said, "Hey, do you want to be on our board?" And I'm like, okay, sure. They were looking for students to obviously represent the student voice and help make decisions for the organization, because it's the organization that oversees and advocates for the students at my university. And so first year I fell in, I'm like, sure, why not? What the heck? What's the worst that could happen? And then I fell in love with what I was doing, and I decided, okay, second year, I'm going to stay on the board and I'm going to take a position on Laurentian University's Senate. So the Senate is the academic body that oversees all the academics at Laurentian. Yeah. And then from there, I ran in their election and I'm like, you know what? Let's go for it. I'm going to run for vice president, see what happens. And lo and behold, last year, I ended up winning that election. And for an entire year, I was an executive for this nonprofit. And I got to spend the whole year advocating for students. I had a team of my own that I had the opportunity they helped lead the organization with me, and just do some really great things for the students at my university. So that's what that organization does. Their main purpose is to advocate for the students at that university. Right. And then through that, I also had the opportunity to sit on the steering committee, so the board of directors, for another organization called the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance. So they represent a bunch of undergraduate students in the province of Ontario, which is where I live. Okay. And they collectively represent, I believe, over 250,000 students to stakeholders and government.
Yes. That is a hefty dose of responsibility right there. So, like, with that, like, it's one thing being just like hey, would you like to join our organization? And you're like, yeah. But like, what was the thing where you're like, you know what? I've been looking around. I think I can run some of this. It is my time. Like,
Yeah.
what drove you to that?
Honestly, my first year of university,
Mm,
I really struggled to transition from high school into university. There were a lot of moments where I did not know where to go, what to do, and I was very thankful that I had the organization there to help me out.
mm,
And I remember there was one pivotal moment that really drove me to continue with the organization, and it was in my first year of university. I believe it was like November or something,
okay.
and it's a rainy day. I've had a horrible time. Right? I'm stressed out. Midterms are happening. And I remember I'm walking up the hill and there's a storm grate and it's all wet because it was just raining. And
Mm,
I slip and I fall and I'm bleeding and scraped all up. And I just think, I'm like, I don't know where to go. I just need a bandage. I
mm,
just need to get fixed up. But I have no idea where to go in this university to even get that. And I was very thankful I at least had that connection with the student union there. And so I went into the office and I'm like, look, I just need a bandage. I need help. Like, I'm basically on the verge of crying because I had such a horrible day. And they got me all fixed up and everything was good. But it was in that moment I realized many students have no idea where to go for this kind of stuff. They have no idea where to turn to.
mm.
And while I love the people who were running the association at the time, there was still lots of potential that was there that wasn't being utilized.
Yeah.
And so I realized that, you know what, I've had this horrible experience transitioning in, and now I have an obligation to try and help to make things better for students who are coming in after me. And that's always been my goal within the association is I want to leave the university and leave anything I do better than it was before I got there, right?
Mm.
And I felt that in that role of vice president, that was the way I would best be able to do that.
Ah, I see. So, like, leaving the place better than what it was before, that is always it's a great and noble thing to do. But like, I always find when people like get into a role when they're like, I've got responsibility and now I've got a team and everything like this. Let's go forward this way. That there's always these little things, these unexpected things which come along, which you kind of like go, hey, wait a second. You mean like, why can't I do it this way? Then you've got to do it this way. Like, what did you find some of the challenging things about that?
Oh, there were so many moments like that. I think people don't realize until they're in the position all of the barriers there are to making that change.
Mm,
And there's a lot of things you have to go through. Any of the big decisions I wanted to make, it wasn't just, okay, I'm going to do it now. It first had to go through the executive committee. There were 3 executives who were running the organization. So myself, the
mm,
president, and the vice president of student life, and we all had particular roles.
mm.
And then from there, once it passed at the executive committee, it then had to go to our board of directors and they had to approve the big decision. And if it was a larger decision, then we would have to talk to the university, we'd have to talk to different stakeholders, we'd have to talk to students. Like, it's a really big process to make change. It's not just, I want to do it one day and that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, I know
Because
you guys are all on my side. Come on, let's go.
yeah, exactly. You can't just do that. That's not how it works. But you don't realize it until you're in that role, right? And I think it's a good thing that there are those checks and balances in place because it makes sure that the decisions you're making are going to be solid decisions and you're not just making a decision that's going to affect students for a very
Mm,
long time. That's actually a really bad decision, right? The checks and balances are in place for a reason. It helps to make sure that those who are in the executive role or who are trying to make that change aren't just spending money wherever or making all these different changes and doing things for personal reasons. It's an accountability measure to make sure that, we're doing our job and we're doing it to really benefit the students.
mm.
But there have been a lot of challenges for sure. And I know we had one at the end of the year where those checks and balances maybe didn't work the way they should have, in
Oh.
that we had an election kind of thing go on where the rules that were written out weren't written out necessarily in the best way, or they were very loose and easy to misinterpret. And we had a thing where many of the candidates in the election ended up getting disqualified. And it was a whole thing. Yeah.
Like when you said that, like the thing what popped into my head was the first Pirate of the Caribbean film. Talking about the pirate code and like just like the more guidelines. Just like so very vague. Like how?
And that's what it was, right? They're really, really vague. And that was the problem, because I could read it one way and a candidate could have read it another way. And our chief returning officer, which is the person who was overseeing the election, they interpreted it another way. And so we're all interpreting it differently. But the problem becomes, if you interpret it differently than what the person overseeing it is or whatever, then that's when miscommunication happens. And that's when you either make mistakes that then could be detrimental to your campaign or whatever it may be. And so we had a really interesting time. I know it was the first time I was ever on the other side of a protest.
Oh, really?
It's
like, so I take it you're the protester rather than
normally, yeah.
Okay.
I'm normally the one who's out there in the action, right, making sure that we're fighting for what's best. And this was one moment where, because I was part of the organization, I had to remain on the side of the organization, right? And even though there were moments where I really wanted to speak up and say, hey, this is not right, or this is not what I believe. And I did that behind the scenes, of course, but publicly I had to remain with the organization, because that's a part of your fiduciary duty on a board or when you're running an organization. But it was really wild. The students not happy.
You're just like there, like seeing the protest, like I shouldn't be in here. I should be out there.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
What's going on here? This feels all wrong. It's just like I'm looking, like, look, your president's looking at you, go, no, stay. It's like, okay.
Well, exactly, right? And it was really, it's a hard time for me, because I truly wanted to be out there with them. I really wanted to show them, like, look, I believe you. I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for what's right. But I just can't, be so open about it, right? Because the only way for me to make change right now is for me to stay within this organization and try to make it from inside, right? And I think that was the thing, is I have this position now and I can help to make that change. And I started the process of trying to rewrite that policy so that moving forward, it's not as vague, and I left it in really good hands. So I know that it will improve. But it was definitely a really hard moment, especially since those who were affected by it personally were some of my friends, right? They were people who I play video games with at night and who I call like constantly. They're my close friends, but I couldn't be there in the same way because we had very different responsibilities at the time.
Yeah, like, so, okay, I understand that, but like you mentioned just now that, you are normally on the other side of that situation. So with regards to sort of like your little anarchist what lives inside, so like when you've been protesting, what sort of things have you been sort of protesting for?
Absolutely. I am really, really passionate about obviously women's rights and making sure that there's gender equality. Racial equity is something that I will be there in solidarity with, but obviously never on the forefront of, because obviously I'm a white woman and I do not want to speak for something that I am not a part of, but I will always stand in solidarity when it comes to racial equity. I'm also a member of the LGBTQ plus community. So for me, that's really important as well. I'm standing up against homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, and just making sure at the end of the day, I support a number of different causes. But at the end of the day, the one thing that I think in my head before I support something is this fighting to make sure that we are in a place where everyone can be equal and everyone can have the best life possible. That's all I want, is I want everyone to be able to have the best life possible. I want people to be able to wake up and not fear for their life. And so I will fight for any cause that makes sure that that is possible, right? Because I think everyone should be able to live a life where they're not living in fear and they're not living, like there's no inequalities. And obviously we are far from that right now, But with my work, I try to make sure that that's what we're working towards, right? And I've done that with the organizations I support and I'm a part of, as well as obviously with movements. So student movements as well are something that I'm of course a part of, because I'm a student right now and gotta fight for the students, but all sorts of different movements.
Okay. Yeah, like because I've had friends back in the day, they were on like one of my friends, he was the student of Liverpool University. Also like another friend, he was like involved, he bounced around a bit, but he was in John Moores, which is in Liverpool, and he was in like Liverpool University, working with the sort of student like government, and sort of like you've sort of had both feet in both worlds. So you kind of like with that, do you get much more of a better understanding where the system can be improved? That now that where you stood before, where you like would protest, but you most really only had half of the story.
Yeah, I definitely think I have a lot more of the story than I did.
Mm.
I fully admit that before all of this, I was very radical, and I admit it fully.
It's like
Right?
it's like don't say that too loud. They'll be on you in no time. It's like
Yeah, and I don't mind admitting it because it's true, right? I was very quick to just jump on the administration or jump on things and not really look at all sides of the story. And I think now that I've been in the shoes of someone who is leading an organization and trying their best to kind of navigate everything, I understand that there are a lot of challenges that somebody who is trying to make this change has to face. And I definitely see a more whole, like, full picture. And so I'm less, obviously I still am, really wanting to support people and advocate for people, but I now take a step back and think, okay, what's the best approach to doing this, right? I'm not always just, okay, let's yell, let's be in the streets, let's do that. It's, okay, will working together be something that actually is going to benefit this cause more, right? Will working with the government, working with these stakeholders benefit the cause more than me kind of being in the streets and fighting? And I think there's a time and a place for both. I don't think that working together all the time is reasonable, or, it doesn't make sense. But same with protesting all the time. That doesn't make sense either, right? There needs to be that balance between obviously holding people accountable, but then working and collaborating with these people to push that change forward. So yeah, I definitely think that has changed my mind.
Like this is the thing. Now, it's very interesting to hear because when I ever like speak to anyone who's like been through the whole process and like it's like, they have a go at their work management, then they become management, then it's a case of like or if they join an organization and like they used to like bitch and complain about that organization, then it's like they again, that sort of perspective is always eye-opening, and sometimes you like get a little bit more sympathetic with the sort of organization because you understand they are trying to do the hard work. They might not necessarily have the best approach to do that hard work, but they still are trying. So you can go, okay, I can let that go a little bit more than before. Little anarchist. That's what I'm going to call you from now on.
Little anarchist. I love
it. Oh yeah. One thing, was this the first time you led a team? Because you said it was like, yeah, you were given a team. How many people were on your team as vice president?
So it was kind of an interesting structure. So I had 2 employees who were working directly under me. And then we had a team of about, I want to say 10 to 12 of us who then worked kind of together collaboratively. So I had 2 really great associate vice presidents. One was the associate vice president of distance and part-time. So they actually worked in a completely different province than we were in, which was interesting because they're an online student. And so we said, we're not going to discriminate against an online student to represent online students.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were in Columbia, but we were in Ontario, I think British Columbia. I'm so sorry if I got that wrong.
Like, you know what? Like, I'm in the UK. Canadian geography means nothing to me.
Fun.
I'm like, yes, yeah.
Yes. And then my other associate vice president worked alongside me in our office, and they were associate vice president academics. So they would focus on all the academic appeals, supporting students in that regard. And then my job was a lot more of the educational campaigns, advocacy work, and government relations. So that was what I did. And then I led the two. My management style is very loose, and I'll admit I was very new to management. I had no idea what to do. So I was kind of like, yeah, go off, do your own thing, have fun.
Just okay, don't worry, just check in with me every now and then.
Yeah, just do whatever you feel is right. And like, I know they had really good moral compasses, so I was okay with letting them kind of do that. But I think there were definitely, now looking back, I'm like, okay, I could have given them more direction.
Okay.
Right? Definitely could have been like, hey, this is where I kind of want us to go. But you learn that after the fact, right? It's something that's hard to know going in because you don't know what you're going to be like. And it's very new to you, right? I started the role, I was 19 years old. What does a 19-year-old know about running an organization? Not very much.
No, you know what? I'll tell you this right now. There are people twice or three times your age which still have not a lot of ideas of how to run an organization. So yeah, it's not an easy task to take on, especially at the age of 19.
Exactly. So I definitely, like, looking back, there are things that I wish I had known or things that I definitely learned along the way that I'm like, okay, if I'm ever in this position again, which I'm sure I will be in a different organization or whatever, I know now and I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. But I think we worked fairly well together. So that was the three of us. And then obviously the rest of the organization. We had the president, we had a whole student life department that did a lot of the events, clubs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we had finance, obviously, communications, that kind of stuff. It was a really great team, and it was really great to learn kind of how to manage a team like that and how to run an organization. Right? I think it's a really valuable experience, and I'm so thankful that I had that experience.
Oh no, that's brilliant. Like, with that, like, what was like one of the things you thought you knew but you didn't know, and what was the biggest lesson you took away from it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I always tell people, and this is a very vague lesson, but I think it kind of still, this is the biggest thing I learned. You are more capable than you think you are. And that was something that I had to learn kind of the hard way. I faced a lot of imposter syndrome in my role because I was the youngest person in the organization. My employees were older than me, which was interesting. Everyone was older than me. And I was the youngest person involved in this organization. And I am in the vice president role where I'm like, yeah, hi, I'm 19. Nice to meet you. And I faced a lot of imposter syndrome because I'm like, why am I here? Right? Should I really be here? Am I qualified enough to be here? And there was a lot of that went on where I would constantly second guess myself and be like, hey, like, maybe this isn't for me. There were definitely moments even where I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. I'm going to just quit and that's it. And I think that was the biggest lesson I had to learn is I was there for a reason and I'm here for a reason, right? The things I do, people obviously trusted me enough to be vice president, to run this organization. And so I am capable of doing it and I am qualified to do it. And I think that really helped me kind of to really get out of that like self-conscious mindset and just remember that, you know what, I'm here for a reason. I can do this. And it gave me that confidence to lead. And once I was out of, and obviously there were always moments where I had that imposter syndrome, but once I was out of like the rut of it all, I really got that confidence and I started to do things that I didn't even think were possible, right? I was speaking at Queen's Park, which is our provincial legislature. I spoke at an event there and I was doing a whole bunch of different things that I never even thought was possible, but I had that confidence after I got out of that to do it. And I just went for it. And so that was the biggest thing I learned and I will carry with me is that I am 100% capable. And that's what I share with people who come after me. Like the person who came after me is even younger than I am. They're a year younger than me. I know.
I was the youngest vice president in this role. You?
No.
Exactly.
Exactly. And that's what I shared with them. I was like, look, don't let your age stop you. And I think this applies to everyone, right? Whether you're young, you're old, whatever, don't let your age stop you, or don't let these other things stop you from doing what you want to do, and stop you from believing that you are able to do it. Because any person can do anything they want to do if they put their mind to it and they work hard for it, right? It doesn't matter how old you are, whatever, you have that ability, go for it. And that was my advice I gave to my successor, and something that I'm going to carry with me for sure.
No, I totally understand. I agree wholeheartedly. When you said imposter syndrome, like it's one of those things where it could be when you're young, it could be when you're older, it doesn't matter where. When you take on something new, there's always this sort of element, this like air of, oh, have I screwed up? Am I the right person to do this? Oh Christ! Like this, they're gonna see right through me. I feel like I'm skating on thin ice. That I think sticks with everyone, but it's a case of if you don't put yourself in a place of discomfort, you'll never grow. You'll never be able to push yourself to new limits, new highs. It's a tricky one when, like, I would say there are some times where, yeah, by all means, some people bite off more than they can chew. But like the whole thing is, if there was a driving force saying you should do this, and you got off your hind parts to start the process, get there, and like other people believe you can do this, especially like an elected position, that you've got to go, right, they had the confidence in me. But like if it was a new job, that person who's hiring me has that confidence in me. They see something, a quality, what lives within, which should be taking them forward taking them forward and give you confidence to take that next step. But yeah, I'm liking it, girl. Liking it. Little anarchist. There you go. Yeah. She's into it, yes.
I love it. It's hilarious to me, right? I'm a political science student.
Okay.
So for me, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Mind you, I also want to run for government. So if anyone there is watching, I promise I'm not an anarchist.
I'm not an anarchist. No, I just want to shake things up in the system. Like take Canada in a new direction, a positive direction, a bright direction.
Exactly.
I think I might be kicking off your manifesto in no time at all. Like speaking of Canada, I was perusing your like bio, and like, yes, Miss World Canada delegate. Please tell me more.
Absolutely.
I was like,
so that one was a really wild experience. So I entered pageantry at the age of, I believe, 16 years old. I competed in the Miss Teen Heartbeat pageant, which was in Timmins in the middle of nowhere, Northern Ontario. And I ended up winning, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do just the Northern Ontario pageant. So Miss North Ontario is what it's called. And I represented my little town of Wanapitei, which is also the middle of nowhere, Northern Ontario. And I was like,
company.
Exactly.
Oh God, I was joking.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to represent my town in Miss North Ontario, see what happens. I had absolutely like no plans of competing nationally. It was just, I'm going to do this pageant, see what happens. And Miss North Ontario was a preliminary to Miss World Canada. And they asked me, they're like, hey, do you want to put your name forward? And we're going to be picking from the people who are interested, 3 girls or whatever to go to Miss World Canada. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. I'll do it another year or whatever.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to do it. And then the current Miss North Ontario at the time, she convinced me to put my name forward. She's like, you know what? Just put your name forward, see what happens. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll put it forward. I'll say yes, and we'll see. And then that night on stage, they're like, okay, and the contestants who have been chosen to compete at Miss World Canada are, and my name was picked. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I only had 3 months to prepare for Miss World Canada, which is a national pageant. You're there for about a week, and it's girls from all across the country who are competing. So I had 3 months to get everything all sorted out. It was a lot. I had to go on an incredible fitness journey.
Okay.
Because I was not ready to be in a bikini on stage unless I felt fully confident. And to feel fully confident, I knew that I really wanted to be in the best shape possible physically and mentally. And that required, active fitness, right? I didn't have to. And that's what I stress to people. You don't need to lose weight. You don't need to go on a fitness journey. You don't need to do any of that to compete. But I wanted to, because I knew that in order to have the most confidence I possibly could, I need to be sure that I was taking care of myself. And I knew that before Miss North Ontario, I wasn't taking care of myself physically, right? And so I went on this fitness journey, and it continued with me after, which was really great. And I got the dress, and I got the public speaking stuff, and I learned how to walk really nicely in heels and all sorts of stuff. And then we got to Miss World Canada, and my roommate was Miss Manitoba. It's wonderful.
Okay.
And she was really great. And I was one of the youngest girls there again. This is my theme.
It's like you walk into a room. Hello, hi, Caitlin.
Hi.
I'm the youngest person here. No, you're not.
I actually wasn't the youngest. So I was 18 years old when I competed. And my roommate was also 18, or she had just turned. So like we were the two youngest at the competition. Was my roommate and I. And it was intimidating. Miss World Canada, it's an incredible opportunity. I got to walk in a fashion show in Toronto. I got to really share my story, my platform, with the people there and on stage with people. It was just a really, really great experience. And it gives you that platform to do charity work, to gain notoriety for your story, your platform. So pageantry is wonderful. It was a great experience, but absolutely intimidating. But I will say Miss World Canada and pageantry in general is really what started me in public speaking, which is a really interesting thing, because before I competed in pageantry, I hadn't done that soul searching as to what my story really was. I was kind of like, okay, I'm here, I'm doing stuff, this is fun. But there is a platform aspect of pageantry where you need to have a cause that you are passionate about, and you need to have a story that you want to share. That's a part of pageantry, because once you win, you have this title, you have an entire year to really, raise funds, share your platform, and use this title to the best of your abilities. And so it requires you having that story to share. And I hadn't thought about what my story was. And preparing for Miss World Canada, you actually have to create a platform speech where if you received this grant that Miss World gives, you would go and then do a humanitarian project in your city. And so you actually have to think, okay, what would I do for this project? So for me, it was talking about suicide loss in particular, because that's a part of my story, is suicide loss. I lost my very close friend when I was 14 years old to suicide. And so my project was, I wanted to create something for those who are left behind after suicide, because there's not a lot there for those who are grieving from suicide. And it's a whole other thing, right? Grief already is really difficult, but then there's a lot of guilt that goes with the grief when you lose someone to suicide. And so I wanted to create an organization that supported those who were left behind. And that's when I really started to do that digging and realize I have this incredible story that I can share with people that I had never been thinking about and I hadn't tapped into. Right. And I kind of would just push it aside and be like, yeah, whatever. Like, this happened. Obviously, I'm dealing with it, but I don't need to share it with anyone. But then when I was given this platform, I realized this story is incredibly powerful and can move people. Right. And it can inspire people, right? Living with mental illness and still doing all these things, losing someone to suicide, all of that. It is a story that a lot of people, even if they haven't lost someone to suicide, they can relate to the mental illness part. And that inspired me to go into public speaking. So pageantry was a really great kind of segue into what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah, one of the things, like, I remember at Miss World when I was a kid, and like, it was, how can I put it? It was, you had your swim, like, it was swimwear, like evening wear, and then basically, like, you had some sort of vague sort of, what would you do about world peace? Well, I would do blah 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 blah. And like, oh, like, and because it kind of like fell out of fashion, if you get what I mean, for television, you didn't really see that over here in the UK. I know there's a huge pageant scene over in like the North of America, like US, Canada, everything like that.
Philippines.
Yeah, but like the whole thing is one of the things what really sort of like blew my mind. I was watching John Oliver this week, and he was like talking about the US pageant scene, and it was like, okay, they had this woman. I swear to God, they asked her about some like, what would you do about this particular thing which was going on, a real political issue. She just went. She started off slow. After about 10-15 seconds, she was off like a rocket. She just like gave such a clear and precise answer in a space of like a minute 20 seconds. I was like, my jaw was on the ground because I was like, why don't you give her the job to sort that out? So I got to ask, what was do you remember the questions they asked you? Which was like,
Ooh, yeah, questions are really difficult. The one thing people don't realize about the questions is that it is totally on the spot. You do not know what you're going to get, and you don't have time to think about it. They read you the question, and you maybe have 10 seconds where you're taking a breath to think about what you're going to say, and then you go. And you only have like 40 seconds to a minute, not even, to say your answer. And I remember my 2 questions I got at Miss North Ontario. One was talking about technology.
yes.
And whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And I shared that I think it's a good thing if used correctly. Right? And I talked about how it can connect people from all over the world. And this is a great example, right? If there was no technology, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
And so I had that was kind of what I said, but obviously it needs to be used correctly. And there needs to be education around technology so that children, know how to use it and aren't falling into the trap of all sorts of problematic behaviors, different things like that. So that was the one question I got. Another question I got was talking about the most humbling experience in my life.
Mm.
And I shared the story of when I went to Poland and I visited Auschwitz.
Oh.
And the feeling when you walk in that, like into the area, your heart drops, right? And you just feel a heavy, heavy presence when you're there. And you can feel it like it's someone grabbing your heart and just holding it. And that was a really humbling experience for me because it made me realize, and it was a really transformative moment for me because it made me realize that there are people who had to go through that. And there are people who are still having to go through similar things, right? And that I'm in an extremely privileged position where I am right now, right? Living in Canada, being a white woman who really, isn't, I have a lot of privilege, right? I don't walk out of my house and think, oh no, like I am fearing for my life. I walk out of my house, I'm like, okay, great, yeah, whatever. Right. And that was a moment where it really started my journey to realizing that I have this privilege and that I have a duty to use this privilege to make sure that others, don't need to fear for their lives. And so that was a really transformative moment for me and really humbling moment for me because any problems that I thought I had, well, I'm not here to, I'm not going to invalidate those problems because of course everyone has those problems. But it really put those problems into perspective for me. And it made me realize that, yes, of course, there are problems that I'm dealing with and that I still need to, but there are also really big problems and there are bigger problems that I should also be putting my energy towards. So that was a really, it was a big answer for pageants, but.
Yeah, no, like this is the thing, like with regards to like, it kind of gives me a little bit more of sort of understanding of like, how comes you're so fired up? Look, losing someone to suicide at a young age, don't get me wrong, like losing anyone, it takes a toll. Losing people to suicide, look, there's always like, I should have been there to help more. Like, why did they do it? And like, you know what? People don't really say it, but like sometimes anger to like that person, like going, hey, like, why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you talk to me? Like, you selfish.
Oh, there were so many feelings of that, right? That was the whole process of grief, especially when it comes to losing someone to suicide, is very complex. And it's something that not a lot of people talk about, because there is that anger, that guilt that's there, and you go through it all, right? When I first found out, I was in denial. I was like, oh no, this didn't happen. It's fine. It didn't happen. And then I was like, no. And I told my friends, my family, because I was in denial, I'm like, oh no, it's fine. I'm not affected by it. It's, whatever. But then I realized, like, I started to go through the whole process. So it was denial. And then it was just anger. I'm like, why did this happen? Da, da, da. And then just like sad, like deep, deep sadness. Right. And that's the thing, is like, I fell into this really deep state of depression after I lost my friend. And for, a whole year, if not longer, I withdrew from everything. And I'm a very like active person. I really like to involve myself with all sorts of activities. And I withdrew from everything. Right. I was just like, nope, I'm not doing anything. I don't want to do anything. And that's it. Right. And I fell into such a deep state of depression that even myself, like I had already been suffering from mental illness from a young age. But this kind of made it worse. And there were moments where absolutely, like, there was even moments where I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. And I talk about one transformative moment where it was, I think 2 months after she died, where I wanted to take my own life. But then I had this realization that, I have this opportunity to live this life that this person is no longer going to get to live. Right? My friend, her life ended that day, but my life doesn't have to. Right? And I had that moment. It was about 2 months after. It was like August 11th, I think is what it was. I have it written down because I use it when I speak, because I think it's a really powerful moment, because that moment was the moment I realized that I wanted to live life to the best of my abilities, because I was given this chance to do so. Right? I was in this deep state of depression for a long time, but I wanted to continue out. I wanted to see where this life would go for me and go from there. And I always tell people, I'm like, I didn't ever think I would graduate high school. That's just a flat out, like, I never thought that I would graduate high school. My plan was never to do so. And this really realizing that I had this opportunity to live this life that, again, was cut so short for this person, made me want to keep fighting and keep moving forward in my life, and to do all of the things that she no longer will get to do. Right? Because that's the thing, is she lost her life. She was 14 years old. And, she's not going to get the opportunity to go to university, to get married, to have these amazing experiences, to have a career, to do all this stuff. And so I live my life remembering I am incredibly lucky to be able to do that. Right? I'm incredibly lucky to have these experiences and these moments. And that's what pushes me forward. Yeah, it's a very transformative experience for sure.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. Like, yeah, as I was saying, yeah, these are this is where I'm getting more of an idea of who you are with regards to that. Like, yeah, I know that there are many of us in this world who are just here and not sort of really sort of taking part in the whole sort of process of life. And I think with regards to lockdown world where we are right now, 2020, I think there's a lot of people which are like either like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and that's been taken away now. I think there's going to be people like going, yeah, you know what, I really wanted to travel here, but I can't do that now, and is that going to be taken away from me forever? Which it's not, but I think it might be the very thing to spur them on to see new places, do new things, and like basically, yeah, with regards to like employment or anything like this, maybe rather than work for someone else, like chase something you love to do, something that will provide passion and inspiration for other people's lives. It is, so I get that. I understand where you're coming from with that, and yeah, pushing, always pushing forward.
I like the fact that you mentioned that, like, how everyone's feeling in quarantine, because I definitely, like, I feel the same way. Honestly, I'm not, like, they're not alone in feeling that it is a really difficult time, because it is, right? It's really difficult. You had all these plans, and like, I'm the same way. I had all these plans lined up. I was supposed to be going on exchange. I was going to go to Finland next semester, and I was going to spend the semester there and all this stuff. And everything is just out the window. Any plans I had for the next year are gone.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, what do I do now? But I think this is also a really great opportunity for people to explore those passions they do have, and to really think about what drives them, what wakes them up in the morning, what they really want to pursue, right? It gives them that opportunity. And I think, like, obviously it is a really scary time, and it's a very privileged kind of thing to even be able to explore those things. But I think it's a great opportunity to do, right? Like, I know for me, I really wanted to explore video creation more, which is why I'm in the process of starting my own YouTube channel. I'm getting my website all figured out. Like, I'm doing those kind of things to kind of build that a lot more, build my public speaking a lot more, which I really neit the opportunity to do because I was so busy with everything.
Yeah.
And I use air quotes because we stay busy.
Put it this way, busy. Yeah, I managed to watch that whole season of that stuff on Netflix. Insert show here, insert whatever here. It's like, I was so busy. I can't, But no.
it is a great opportunity, right? To take that step back and reevaluate your life and reevaluate what is actually going to make you happy. I always tell people whenever they're trying to figure out what they want to do, I ask them why, like what, like the why in their life, right? And so I'll take a perfect example. The person who came after me for vice president, when they were coming into it, I asked them, why do you want to do this? Why are you in this role? And they had like a kind of service level answer. They're like, oh, I want to make change. I want to whatever. And I'm like, no. Like, I don't want any surface level answer. Why? What is driving you? Right? Because this is hard. This world is hard. Right? And if you do not have that thing that really you feel in your gut that's driving you forward, then it's going to eat you alive at times. Right? And especially like with that role, it's hard, that role. Being vice president's hard, especially at 19 years old. And so I told him, I'm like, if you don't have that thing that's really going to drive you and wake you up and make you want to do things at 2 a.m. and whatever, then maybe you should reevaluate what you're doing. Right? And he came back to me a couple days later and he's like, okay, I have my answer. And I'm like, okay, why are you doing this then? And he gave me the answer. I'm doing this because I've never seen myself in this kind of role. All right, I've never seen myself represented. He said, I'm Egyptian and I've never seen anyone who even closely resembles me or my life story in a role of power making these positive changes. And that's why I want to do this. I want to do it for all of the people who grew up like me, who didn't see themselves represented and didn't see themselves even being able to be in these roles. And I'm like, there you go. There's your answer why, right? And I think everyone needs to take this moment because we have this opportunity to do this introspection and to do this thinking about, what we want to be doing. And I think it's a really great opportunity for people to take this moment now to think about, what they want to be doing, why they're doing what they're doing. And if it's not serving their purpose, maybe think about, okay, what can I be doing to serve that purpose? What is my purpose in life? Why am I doing it? And what can I be doing to make sure I am fulfilling that in the best way possible? That's my thoughts on quarantine.
No, it's all good. No, totally agree. Like with regards to like your like successor, I always see why as there's two types of why. There's the why what pushes you, and there's the why what drags you along. It's like gravity. It's like this force which is unstoppable. Like both whys, they have their power, but I'd say the one what pulls you along, the one which there's that guy, okay, I've been doing this for 4 days straight. I'm not too sure what I'm meant to be doing right now, but it's like, oh no, grabs you by the collar, you're coming with me.
Oh yeah.
That why, yeah. But yes, need that. And with regards to quarantine, don't get me wrong, like with the big COVID and all of that going on right now, I do, like, I have my sympathies for anyone who's been affected by it, who's lost people to it, but there is a lot of people who are not. And it might be down to government intervention of what they're doing, But with this time which has been given to people, not like if they're working from home, that extra hour, 2 hours a day, which has been given back to them, there is an excellent opportunity to pick up new skills. There is an excellent opportunity to just like spend time with family. There's an excellent opportunity to connect with people they may have not connected with for quite some time. And I would say there are going to be some people who will look back at this and they'd be quite grateful for the lockdown, and there's going to be some people which they're going to miss out. I'm hoping it's more the former rather than the latter, but yeah, it's giving you an opportunity to looking at YouTube. Okay, I am curious about that. So, like, is it? Are you? Have you really thought out what you're going to do with YouTube, or is it a case of still?
I'm still looking. Right now I started a new project that I've released a little bit of, but I'm releasing like more of the detailed information this afternoon on my social media. But basically I'm starting a project right now for Pride Month, because June is Pride Month and a lot of people are not going to be able to celebrate Pride Month in the same way, right? And it's a really difficult time for those within the LGBTQ plus community, especially those who are closeted, who may be questioning, or who may be living in households that are unaccepting of their identity or sexuality. And so I started a project where I want to kind of give some hope to those people. So I'm going to be creating a video kind of series, and I've asked people to send me submissions from all over the world, doesn't matter who, and from the queer community, saying what they wish they would have known when they were younger, right? And sharing that advice to those who may be struggling, and sharing kind of a message to their younger self. And I'm going to take all the submissions and I'm going to edit it into this video series that will hopefully share these stories and this wisdom from the queer community in order to help bring that inspiration to people. And I wanted to do this because growing up, I saw queer representation in some respects in the media, but living in Northern Ontario, there wasn't a lot of it. You're not really educated on the LGBTQ plus community at all. You're taught that, yeah, sometimes, men marry men and women marry women, and that's it, right? And that's all you're told about the community. And I was sitting there and I'm like, I don't see myself, I don't know, in this community, and I felt very confused, very lost. And it wasn't until I got involved with people who had been out, who had been accepting of themselves for a long time, that I finally accepted my own self, right? And I was able to accept my sexuality, and I was able to kind of have like that experience where I really was able to love myself for who I was. And so this kind of project, my hope is that it will reach people who are struggling the same way I was. And it'll reach those people and it'll help them to realize that, they are completely valid in whatever their identity is, whatever their sexuality is, they are completely valid in it. And that there are people here who have gone through the same thing that they're going through. And there are people here who, it's obviously very scary, but who are here to support and here to help, and who want them to do the best they can and to really come out loving themselves for who they are. So that's the project I'm working on right now. That's obviously the content I'm going to bring, is not this like, oh, look at here's my room tour or anything like that.
Hey, I don't know, maybe. Is that different? This is my room.
That's not me at all. It never has been. I'm the kind of person who, I very much, if I'm going to do a project, I want there to be meaning in it, and I want to be something that is going to add value. That's always been my thing, because I want to bring as much value to the world as possible in the content that I'm creating. And so those are the kind of videos I want to create. I want to showcase stories. I want to share perspectives and wisdom with people, so that those who may be going through a hard time and whatever their life may be can connect with it in some way and feel represented and feel valid in what they're feeling. So I don't know what that looks like on a YouTube level. Haven't really figured that part out, other than this one little video project. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a lot, because like this is the thing, with when you dissect or distill anything down to a particular community, like you often have, like, how can I say, you often have the fringe more sort of who are more loud, they're more vocal, and therefore everyone goes, okay, that is what the voice of the community is, whether it like be like gay, like I, I every time I try selling it on my tongue, I can't do it. It gets tongue tied. But black communities, like Indian, Chinese, like white communities, all the way through, you guys like, oh, right, that little minority which is screaming like, no, this is it and that's that, which I sometimes say they tend to hijack any community. But when it comes down to getting that voice out there, which, you know what I mean, which be it more balanced, clearer, and basically offering support, I think that's needed a little bit more in this world of ours today throughout every community. It's just a thought I have. I might be
No,
wrong about that.
absolutely. And I think that's why too, like with this project, one of my main things is I want to make sure that it's as many voices as possible and it's not just myself, right? Because I want to make sure that we're hearing from all different types of perspectives within the community, because the LGBTQ plus community is a really big community, right? It's not just like one type of person. It's all sorts of different people with all sorts of backgrounds and different stories to share. And that's why with this video series, I'm really pushing to make sure that I get submissions from all different types of people, because that's the point I want to make, is it's not just this one small demographic of people. It's really affecting people from every country, every background, every religion, everything. Right. So I'll be curious to see what submissions I get with the small little community I have. Of course, I like people who are alike tend to gravitate towards people who are similar, right? So I don't know who will submit, but that's why I'm trying to push it to as many people and communities as possible, so that I can get really, really great submissions and have something where any queer person who's struggling can kind of see it and be like, yeah, I see myself represented. I see that they are doing great and I can do great too, right? And that's the hope, is that they see that.
No, that's brilliant. What I would say is, yeah, you are a storyteller in some regards, public speaker. So, any way you can get that voice out there, get their voices out there, I think would be very beneficial. I think it will be very uplifting, and make hopefully provide a little bit of a path for them to walk down, to make their lives that little bit more easier, felt like they're not alone. Because one of the hardest things, and especially with regards to the world we're living in right now, it's very hard to sometimes see the support which is out there, especially if you're sort of kind of locked away by yourself or just cut off from the usual avenues of support. So yeah, I would say if you can, do the YouTube channel along that line, and then basically have a little discussion group, get someone like around, get a couple of friends together, but get people from other parts of Canada, other parts of the world, and like take it like that. So you sort of always getting that outside voice from it, because one of the things you never want to happen is like living in that bubble.
Yeah,
Trust me.
exactly. I love that. I think that's actually giving me some really good ideas. So thank you for that.
What can I say? I only charge a small consulting fee. Don't you worry. Send that check in the mail. Yeah. So with regards to the public speaking, was it a direct correlation from being a delegate for Miss World, or was it a case of you did that, went, oh, that was fun, forgot about it, and then basically it got rekindled?
Yeah, so it was a second, a little bit. Growing up, I always wanted to be a public speaker. I've always been kind of using my voice in some way or another. And I remember I was really young at the time. I think it was first grade when I started competing in these like public speaking competitions. And they're hosted by like the Legion or something. And you have to give like a 2-minute speech about some random topic. I did a speech on Albert Einstein one time. They were interesting, but it helped to prepare me on how to speak. And I've always felt really comfortable speaking in front of crowds and sharing different perspectives with crowds. But then when Miss World Canada happened, it showed me that I do have that capability to continue to pursue it, right? It was something in my childhood where I was like, I want to do this, but then I kind of never put any more thought into it because I thought I wasn't able to do it. I thought, you know what? No, not something I can do, and I'm just going to leave it there. And then when Miss World Canada happened, it kind of showed me that I could do it and that it was something I was capable of. And from there, I continued to pursue it and I continued to look into it. And I've had the incredible opportunity to speak at all sorts of different things. One of my favorite moments within my public speaking career has been the opportunity where I spoke at a conference. It was hosted by the Rainbow District School Board, which is the school board within my city. And 2 years earlier, I was one of the people who helped to host the conference and like organize it. And then 2 years later, I'm speaking at it. I'm doing a keynote speech at it. And that was a really powerful moment for me because I saw the progress I had made in 2 years' time. All right, I had graduated high school. I was in university, I was second year. And this was a really just, wow, comes full circle moment. And that moment showed me that, you know what, me continuing this public speaking, really pushing forward with this is really beneficial. And the amount of people who came up to me after I spoke at that conference and who were like, yeah, right, you really moved me. I'm going through a similar thing. And I got DMs for, weeks after. And even still, there were these kids who I spoke to because they were high school students. And I spoke to them and they'll message me now and be like, yeah, this is like, I did this because of what you said, or I did it. And I'm like, this is great. I love to see this, right? And I spoke at a different conference. It was the Canadian Conference on Student Leadership in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I shared a story, my story and stuff, and I left them with a challenge. It's my favorite challenge. I told them, I challenge you over the next, because we were there for like a weekend, I challenge you over the next couple of days to give yourself permission to fail 3 times. Do 3 different times, do something that you wouldn't normally do something that terrifies the heck out of you, but give yourself that permission. It has to be something where you would look at it and say, oh, well, no, and then step back from it. Take that moment and do it anyways. And I challenge them at the end of the 3 days, message me and tell me what you did. I want to hear the stories. I want you to actually send me a message and give me the examples of how you gave yourself that permission to fail. And they did. And to this day, I still am actually quite close with a couple of them because I left them with that. And then they actually went out and listened to it and they did the challenge. And that was a really big moment for me as well. When I saw what you do and what you say transcends what happens in that room. That was a big thing. Because I always thought with public speaking, someone goes up there, they give a speech, that's it. Right? There's nothing else that comes out of it. It's just maybe they think about it for a little bit, but once they're out of that room, it doesn't really affect their life. That was what I thought anyways. But then as I continued public speaking, and every time I do public speaking, I always leave the room with something so that they can connect with me after the fact. And as I've watched these people who have left my speeches and they have actually followed through with what I've challenged them with, and they've shared their stories with me, and I've seen that it's actually changing their lives in some way, that has continued to push me to move forward with public speaking, right? And I think that's been the driving for me for public speaking, is seeing that it's actually changing people, and it's shifting their mindset, or it's helping them in a way that they didn't realize they needed. Right. And I had a lot of people message me and say, hey, I didn't even realize that I needed help with this, or I didn't realize that this is something that was affecting me so much until you spoke about it. And I thought about it and I realized that this is impacting me. Right. So it's really been incredible public speaking. I always say I wanted to do it, but I kind of fell into it again. One of those things where it's always been there. And I always knew I wanted to do it in some way because my voice is one of those ways where I can give back to the community. But I just didn't know how, or I didn't know that I could, right? And I think Miss World Canada was the catalyst for that, in that it showed me I could, and from there I moved forward with it, and I continue to learn public speaking every day. There's something new I learn, and oh man.
Yeah. No, like this is the thing, like you saying that is going to most probably be to the horror of some feminists out there. Like Miss World, Miss World Canada,
Yeah.
no, no. But like, this is the thing. Like, yeah, like for it to help you find your voice, to like help find your direction where you want to go in life, help others find their voice and their direction. Like, come on now, that's some real positive energy going out there into the world. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Yeah. Uh, with regards to some of the challenges you heard, can you remember any of the sort of like failure challenges? Was there anything, one particular one that stood out to you for one?
Normally they were just kind of small stuff, which is okay because that's a good start, right? And that's something you can do in 3 days. So there was stuff where somebody really wanted to reach out to someone that inspired them, but they had been holding themselves back from it, and they did it, right? Or it was things where I had one person say, you know, I've really been wanting to do this. Like, I want to do this project for a long time. I wanted to start working on it, whatever. And I've just been holding myself back. I didn't want to do it because I was afraid that it wasn't going to, like, I wasn't going to do well, or I was going to fail. And I did it anyways. And this is the outcome of it, right? It's a lot of those things where I think on a daily basis, sometimes we hold ourselves back from doing things because we're afraid of the outcome of what's going to happen, right? We always think the worst thing first. We're like, oh, well, what happens if this and this and this and this happens, right? What if I look, stupid and I failed miserably and nobody likes it? And it's like, okay, yeah, what if? But also, what if people love it? What if people are moved by it? What if it's a really great thing that you're doing? And by holding yourself back, you're really just cheating yourself from this, right? Because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. You don't know that's immediately going to be bad, right? You're thinking it is, but it may not be, right? And it's such a cheesy saying, but I love the saying that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I think it's so true though, right? Because by holding yourself back, you don't know what could have happened. But if you put yourself out there and you do the things and you leave failure behind and you leave the idea of failure behind, then you will continue to grow and succeed. And yes, you will have challenges. And yes, you will have things that, may not have ended up the greatest, or you will fall on your face.
Yep.
But you'll also have a lot of really great moments. And I think I've heard a lot of stories, again, that have come out of that challenge, many small, but it starts with a small step and continues on, right? And I've seen people who they started with something small, like, hey, I saw this really cute girl, I wanted to talk to her, and I did. And I'm like, great. And that seems like such a small feat. But if you start to slowly do things that would have scared you, then you're going to work yourself up to do bigger and bigger things. It just starts with the small steps, and then you grow from there. Baby steps.
Indeed. No, like embracing failure, and like that is one of the things. Yeah, as you say, not many people want to embrace failure because it's just like, yeah, if I fail, oh no, all the worst things in the universe come to me, and it's never gonna come. It's never gonna go my way, and then I'll be lying down on the ground, doomed forevermore. But like the whole point is, like when you look at the most successful people in our society, they are like, if you really sat down and talked to them, they're like, going, I failed this, I failed at that, and like time and time. 80% of what they've done would be failure, and then like 20% would be the things which went, yeah, this landed and that landed, and like you go, wow, you're super successful. Yes, I am, but I failed a lot.
Oh, yeah. The most successful people in this world are the people who have the courage to fail, right? And I share that in that one type of speaking that I do when I talk about failure a little bit more. I share these stories of people who we see are really great people who are inspiring and successful, and like they own their own company and they're world renowned. But then you look at the amount of times they have failed and you think, oh, I can do that too then, right? And failure is not so bad. There are so many people. Albert Einstein is a really great example. People see Albert Einstein as this incredible person who did all of these great things for science. But the amount of times where he fell on his face, where he didn't succeed, where he was wrong, is so many, right? But you need that to learn. And I think that's one thing I've learned through all this is you need to have those moments where you make mistakes, where you fail. I don't like the word fail because I don't think you can necessarily, but right. You need to fail. You need to fall on your face. You need to make mistakes, and you need to produce really bad things to grow and learn, right? You don't just start brilliant. You start from wherever you start, and you continue to grow from there. And then you'll look back and you'll realize where you started was, not the greatest, but you've made that progression and you've grown. You can't start from 100 and then just stay there. You start and you move your way up. And I think that's the thing is people can't be afraid to produce bad content, to be wrong. That's so many people I know are afraid to just be wrong. But that's how you learn, right? By having those bad ideas or being wrong in your opinions and then educating yourself and growing, right? And that's how you learn and you grow.
No, perfect. I liking that. No, like the only time you do fail is when you stop. When you stop trying to push yourself, when you stop trying to grow, where you stop trying to educate yourself in all the ways you can. That's when you fail. Apart from that, failure, you might not succeed at certain things, but you do other things. Life is long and life is short, as they say. So, got to say thank you very much for that. Yes, very inspirational. I feel uplifted. Yeah, it's your third year. Is university over for you after this year, or do you have another year to come?
So I'm going to hopefully do my degree in 5 years. So I'm in my third year right now, going into my fourth. Depends on how everything goes. I will probably have to do that extra year just because this year as vice president, I was still going to school while also working. So I decided to take a reduced course load just to make sure that I was able to stay on top of all of my work and be in a good headspace because doing full-time school and full-time work is really, really difficult. So I was normally doing 5 courses a semester and I moved it down to 3. Just to make it more manageable for myself. But because of that, I've lost out on an entire semester basically of courses.
Right.
So I will have to extend by a semester. I may push it to a year but also work during that year. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm almost done. Very close.
Almost done. No, I'm liking it. So what do you see as your potential future? Like you mentioned, running for public office. Is it going to be a case of going straight getting after that, or is it going to be a case of corporate world, here I come?
It's interesting because I don't really know. I have this kind of life where I have obviously goals in mind of this is what I'd like to do, but I also have the kind of life where things just come my way, they get thrown at me, and I'm like, okay, I'll go this direction now. And obviously I have that driving thing that pushes me forward, and I have that compass of, okay, this fits within my purpose, and so I will do it. And I won't do things that are completely outside of my purpose, just because that's not really a good direction to go in. But I don't really know where life will take me. I'd like to run for public office. That would be my goal. And in particular, provincial, because Canada has 2 different systems. We have provincial and then federal. So I'd like to stay within the Ontario government, just because I think that's where my expertise could benefit people more, because the Ontario government focuses on public education, health care, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's where I more so would make that change. But I don't know if I'll jump directly into it. We'll see kind of what happens. I would like to kind of explore public speaking a bit more, explore the corporate world a little bit, maybe work with an MPP, right? Maybe work with a member of provincial parliament.
Okay.
Okay. I forget you're from the UK.
That's
a member of provincial parliament.
Okay.
It's an MPP, yeah.
Just looked at my face he has no idea what I'm talking about. Oh.
That's okay. Yeah, I forget sometimes that everyone has a different governmental system.
No worries, no worries. Yes.
But yeah, that's kind of what I want to do, is just maybe explore my options and go from there. But if the opportunity presents itself to jump right in, then I'm going to take it, right? I'm not going to hold myself back from it and say, no, I must work for 10 years first and then run for office. It's like, no, if the opportunity's there and I feel ready for it and I want to do it, then I'm going to go for it. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I have a sense that, yeah, you're going to go for it a lot sooner than, like, rather than later. That's like, yes, I am the youngest member of, like, yeah, I can just, like, I have this sense. I might be, I am, but yeah, I have that sense. Brilliant. Yeah. So, got to say, I can just say, without a doubt, like, yeah, the energy you're supplying out there, the energy you're putting forward, yeah, I think many a great thing is in store for you wherever your adventures might take you. I've with this whole podcasting world, which I'm new to, like, yeah, I have been quite fortunate to, like, speak to many a person. And yeah, some people are brighter lights than others. And I would put you in, like, yeah, the former rather than the latter. So, got to say, yeah, you have to keep on rocking. You have to keep on pushing forward. Like, yeah, with your public speaking, yeah, go out there, kick some butt, names, and yeah, be absolutely freaking awesome. Yeah, would you be able to tell people where they can find you out there?
Absolutely. So I'm a millennial, so I am on all the social media. Um, you can find me Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all that fun stuff, at Katlyn Kotila. So my first name is Katlyn, no I or E, that's lame. And then last name is Kotila. I also have a website that I am editing right now, so it's not fully up yet, but it will be soon. If you click the URL, it'll say, this website is under construction. Get notified when they post something, and I'll notify you when it's all done, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can follow me there. Send me a message if you'd like, whatever. I really am looking to just do all sorts of different projects. So if you're looking to collaborate, I would love to. Send me a message, whatever. We can work on something that will help to change the world.
Excellent, excellent. What I'll do as well in the show notes or the description, I'll put your details down as well. What I'll simply say to all my friends and life warriors out there is, yeah, get in contact with this young lady. She might be building a Death Star out there or something like that, going for like future domination. You see that? You see how she did the like fist right there? So yeah, I say, yeah, watch out for her. And yeah, like, by all means, I think it's going to be sensational, like, when she does get to wherever her destination is. But yeah, I've got to say, yeah, thank you very much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure, honor, not a chore at all. So yeah, and I'm gonna say this, thank you very much, my friends, my life warriors out there. Thank you for listening to the Day in Day Out podcast. I hope you have a fantastic day. I wish you a great day. So be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic, be all the positive bees you can be in this world. Have a great one. Have a great day. Peace. Ha ha.